It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.
Hello, my name is Tyrone Lowe. The show is called The Legends. I want to thank everybody all over the world that actually subscribes to my show and show me love. Now, this person I'm getting ready to introduce to, she's been on my show before, and this is sort of like a continuation from the last show. So I would call it like a part two, but we're going to go into that, and then we're going to go into another segment, okay? She's an author. She wrote a book called Pieces of Me. And we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about some current events, what's going on in her life right now. So, in the House of the Legends, I give you Regina Hall.
Hi, Tyrone.
Regina, what's
Back
going on,
again.
girl? She's back again.
Excuse me.
What's been going on?
Well, I got, my new book coming out called Naked.
Right.
It's unique, but it's not really about exposing a lot of things, but it's also bringing out a lot of things. And my book cover is very unique. I'm not going to explain, too much about it, but I feel that it's going to touch a lot of people,
Okay.
But I have a lot of other things in motion in reference to Naked and my nonprofit, Echoes and Healing.
Okay. When we talked about the first book, the first time, there was a lot of emotionality because we touched on basis of people that knew you but didn't know the inner part of you, and we can appear to be jovial at times, but then again, we still got things going on that's there, in us,
Yeah.
and you want to talk about that because that touched me the last time that we spoke, and I can identify with that. Some people feel that because you do certain things that your emotionality is up to par, but they would never know.
No, a lot of people, when I talked the last time, excuse me.
It's okay.
When I talked the last time, it was basically when you're sitting alone with yourself.
Right.
And it was during COVID. And in my life, I was always busy, handling other people, doing other things for other people but myself. So when I got to sit with myself and going through things, and I think, I had depression,
Right.
but it really came out even more when I was by myself and just thinking about my life, and it was like, man, you never really thought about Regina. And that was like a big deal for me. And then, I always talked about writing a book. And like I mentioned before, that I came up with a 5-book series. So this will be my second book.
Right.
It will be out soon. I was hoping that I was going to have it out by May, but
Right.
I have other things in motion, but it's going to be out, I'll say give it about 2 more months
Okay.
with this book.
Giving yourself an elevation of understanding with yourself and coming to a solid conclusion about yourself. Did it depress you?
It didn't depress me about myself. It was just that, I help so many. And it's not like you look for recognition, but it was just like I was running myself thin. I also didn't know how to say no. I felt a lot of times people took my kindness for weakness.
Right.
I'm a forgiving person. I don't hold, grudges or anything.
Right.
And I just feel like, raising my daughters, and me.
And you did a great job.
Thank you.
I have to really tell you.
Thank you. I was a mother at 18.
Right.
And I've been on my own at 18.
Right.
Had my own place. I was, if anybody read my first book, they'll see that I was in a shelter with my first child.
Right.
And then I got myself an apartment, and then I ended up getting married. But it goes on, so everybody get the book, Pieces of Me. So, because if you don't get the first book, you probably won't really understand the second book, even though I'm going to dip into some of the first book into the second book. But I just felt like, I was like the matriarch of everyone.
Right.
I have to bring up the name, everybody used to, well, Bolega Lou actually came up with the name Diana Boss.
Sounds like him.
But, yeah. And I, even taking control, but when you have control over your life and you had a lot of responsibilities and you were always doing everything, I always made a way. So it was hard for me to allow someone to take over anything concerning myself because I always had to do that.
Right.
As I guess they say, being submissive. And it's not like I couldn't be submissive of certain things, but it was just hard for me to even receive because I was always the one given. So if somebody said, "Oh, I want to give you this," I'm like, "Me," and I never wanted to be recognized of that,
Okay.
When people would say, "I want to, at least put you," no, because I like to do things behind the scenes. I didn't like for people to know that I did it.
Right. But why?
I don't know. It was just, I guess I didn't want to take away from that person either. The one, that I did certain things for. It's just best not to tell me.
Right. At
That's
this
the
point,
best
do you
thing.
feel that it was like a point of rejection? How were you with rejection? Let's go with that phrase. Let's go with that first. How are you with rejection? Because giving to someone all the time, and then when it's time for you to actually make a requisition for you, and they let you down, how would you feel about that? I mean, would that be a sense of rejection in your behalf?
I've been let down quite a bit,
Okay.
but sometimes you just learn to deal with it,
Okay.
and I've learned to deal with it. There was moments that I would cry, to myself, and hurt, but also I'm an analyzer. Sometimes, I would look at certain people
Right.
in their life and saying, well, this went on in their life, so how can they
Right.
be so kind to me or not reject me because they probably never had it themselves.
Okay.
I would always, I guess I would make excuses sometimes.
Okay.
But I guess, as you get older, you should get wiser, with certain things. And, even if it's me putting groceries in someone's house and they didn't say thank you,
Right.
because, you don't have to put a price on thank you.
Okay.
You don't have to, words, it's not always money.
True that. Yeah.
And people don't realize just a word of kindness outweighs any dollar,
Okay.
amount.
At what part of your life did you actually discover your level of emotionality towards yourself?
I was young.
Okay.
I was young. I was
And
very young.
why did you come to the point where you actually wanted to hide that part of you?
I don't think it was so much of me hiding it.
Okay.
It was so much of me, I was always busy. Like
Right,
it was,
right.
I was always being pulled in every direction,
Okay.
and I never had time to really settle for myself.
Or
So
even read between the lines of
Right,
each.
right. It was always like I finished this one. When people always say, you got a lot of drama. When I really look at my life, I never really had a lot of drama in my life. It was just other people had the drama, so I was involved with the drama.
Right,
So,
right.
when
An
I go back
attachment.
when I go back and I look at certain things, I'm like, what is really, is it really going much on in my life? And then I have to look like, I'm like, no, I don't really have much going on in my life. It was either helping someone else and helping them get through it, once again, because I was always pushed out the picture
Right.
for me to even deal with my own. Like my daughters, would say to me, because I call my house a hope house. I would hear a sad story and I'm like, I can help you. Or
Right.
my kids had to share me. It was one time when my kids told me that, Mom, because I would have somebody move in or I was helping them with their children.
Right.
And my daughters told me, it was a few years back, and they was like, we had to share you with the world. We had to share you with everybody. And I was like, to a point like, well, I'm providing, I'm doing this, and
Do you think they
they
felt
were,
selfish?
they,
That you
no,
were selfish
because
in a
when
sense?
I really realized it, because, being a mother and a parent, I just felt like I was giving everything that my daughters needed, in my mind, that I had to apologize because I wasn't looking at it like that. Oh, the only thing I was looking at, I'm giving you a roof over your head, I'm
Right.
providing, I'm putting food on the table, emotionally. But when they made me realize, like, no, Mom,
Okay.
you had everybody here, and we had to share you, or they had to share,
How did you feel you maintained the balance between being a mother and actually dealing with the outside world?
I just, with God, I just did what I had to do. I just wanted to make sure my children were nurtured. I'm a big advocate for mental health. I kept my children in
Right.
counseling.
Okay. You've been around a lot of celebrity types.
I have.
And dealing with your own self and your own structure of your personal life, did you ever look at them and say, well, you feel like they got themselves together and I should be just as jovial as them, in a sense?
No, because being in that celebrity world and watching how they move,
Right.
even when it came to financial, they may had all the material things, but a lot of them didn't even know how to manage money. You know what I mean?
I understand.
Looking at their lives and compared to mine's, mine's was luxury.
Okay.
I watched how they spend money. I watched when they were broke, and I watched where they waited for the
Wow.
royalty
Okay.
checks. Or I've seen that some of them didn't even have no furniture in their house and sleeping on a mattress and had all this money and maybe driving a luxury car. So when I looked at their life compared to mine's, no, I felt like the millionaire, in between.
Through that whole scenario, have you grown up?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about growing up. Let's talk about the elevation of your life, dealing with your fear, your loneliness, your anger, your pain, and your pleasures. I believe that it's something that the viewers should actually know about, overcoming all those symptoms and to make you feel wholesome as a person. I think they should know about that because from the last show that I did, I've got some phone calls with women that actually identify with you in a sense, and that's powerful. When a woman could actually identify with you, it may not have been the same subject, but it had the same philosophy to it. Tell the viewers about that.
So, for me, of going, even though we're vulnerable to a certain degree, but sometimes people are scared to tell their story
Right.
because they feel like they're going to be judged. Excuse me.
Okay.
And I grew up in the church. And the first thing, being spiritual and learning, but growing up in the church for me, it was in me becoming who I am now.
Right.
I'm glad that my spiritual was there, but it was still certain foundations that were missing. And I have to tell people, because it's not that we don't care what people think, because
Right.
we do
Right.
mentally. But in my state of mind, it's not that I don't care what they think. I want to be able to help someone else. If I can do it,
Right.
you can do it too. But you just have to be vulnerable,
Okay.
to the situation as far as expressing yourself.
Right.
Even though people hide things, and like bringing up the church again, go to the altar and pray. Yeah, we're going to the altar and pray, but we're still dealing with mental.
Right. Right.
If we can put mental going, dealing with having therapy and putting spiritual together, I think it will become a balance.
Right. Right.
And for me, that's what I've done.
Okay.
I've put in my spiritual, and I'm putting therapy. And I have therapy once a week. I see my therapist. I'll probably see a therapist for the rest of my life, but I'm okay with that
You're okay with
because
that.
it's
Okay.
helping me get where I need to be.
Okay.
And I just wish that, me writing my story and telling my story of me touching someone, because some people suffer with trauma. And when schizophrenia and me bringing up that is because of things, and I also have PTSD. It's from things from our past
Right.
that we've never dealt with.
Okay.
And I just feel like a lot of people, men or women, and some people don't even want to do therapy.
Oh, okay.
You know, and I feel like if you do the work, because things are just embedded, but do the work of exercising and what is causing these triggers.
Right.
What can we do not to get these triggers going? And that's, you know, doing other things. And I just feel like my wisdom in growing up, we make mistakes,
Right.
but you can't keep on making those mistakes, you know?
But you own it after a while.
No, you
But
do.
before we go forward, we're going to take a little break.
Sure.
And you guys be right back. I mean, we'll be right back. I'm sorry.
It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.
We got some fun people in the house tonight.
This is our house.
We're back. My name is Tyrone Lowe. The show is called The Legends. We have Regina Hall in the house, and we're talking about her book. What's the name of the book?
Pieces of Me and Naked.
Pieces of Me, and we're going to also talk about her book, Naked. Now, before we go forward, you know, we were just talking about some heavy things just now, and do you feel through that whole turmoil that you was actually crying out for your mother and your father, in a sense? You know, you needed that that parental type of situation in your life to make you feel wholesome?
To a certain degree.
Okay.
Because we all had working parents. My mother worked a lot.
Right.
She did. She had 2 jobs.
Wow.
You know,
Okay.
raising 4 kids.
Okay.
But I was also one out of those 4 kids that was the responsible one, I guess she felt. And, you know, I knew my mother loved me, you know,
Right.
and she did all that she could to provide for her children. But I also was the protector of my mom. So I didn't look at it that way because she did nurture, you know, she was there with a whole lot of things. But, and I had my stepfather, now, you know, that I looked at as my real father.
Right,
And
right.
now that I found my biological.
And I remember that so well.
Yes. And I have 2 great men, you know,
Okay.
that
That's
I can,
great.
you know,
That's
I could
great.
say as an adult. And it's a lot of things that I've seen being younger, you know, that I understand now of why things took place the way they did, in which I'll talk about that.
Well, let's talk about Naked, because that's your upcoming book, and I think the viewers should get a little bit of that, because you're getting a little bit more deeper now.
I am.
You are unveiling yourself, you know, a little bit more.
I am.
And as you talk about things just seem to just surface just a little bit more in your life. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I mean, with this book that's coming out, you know, like I have to tell, you know, even my first book, my book is not to hurt anybody's feelings.
Right.
I'm very cautious of that,
Okay.
you know, because some people don't know how to handle things because, you know, now that I'm in therapy,
Go ahead.
I'm in therapy now, and being in therapy has helped me understand and identify, because we got a lot of people out here that are in deniable stages that
Right.
they don't think that they need therapy, you know,
Right,
men
right.
and women, you know, and now that I'm in it, it's helping me bring out a lot of things that I'm not ashamed of, because I'm looking at it like, you know, we recycle in life.
Right, right.
And by me recycling in life, I'm helping you. I'm helping the next person to identify with themselves. And like you said, you know, received a lot of phone calls, and you
Yeah, I
said
did.
that
I really did.
you know that they can relate.
It's like, you know, a lot of women don't know how to really express themselves because they're afraid. And by what you was talking about, it gave him the encouragement to say, you know what, she told my story.
Yes. And that's
And
the
she's
one I want.
still revealing, in a sense, you know. And when you have a person like you that's telling it like it is, regardless of what it is, because it's therapeutic for you and it's therapeutic for them as well. And it's kind of cool to know that you can be the queen of all that. You know, how do you feel when you say to yourself, well, listen, I think it's about time that I talk about some people that's in my life that's giving me stagnation and they need to know. How do you feel about that?
I feel great about it. You know, one thing,
Regardless of their reactions.
yeah, because at the end of the day, if I don't tell it, somebody else is. I mean, this is the way the world is
But
now. They say.
but it's still all about you.
Yeah,
Because
it
you got to
is.
sustain those thoughts.
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
I feel that if I'm happy, but there's still something in the back of my head that's not comfortable, I think that deserves a confrontation.
No, I do. I do.
And I
like,
believe that's what you did.
yeah, and for me, you know, I can tell my own story.
Right.
You ain't got to search for it. You ain't got to look for it. You don't have to do anything.
Right.
I'm going to tell my story. And, you know, everybody has a story, but everybody's story is different of, you know, you could look at a ball and I could say that ball was green and you
Right.
could say it was brown, you know. Everybody has their version of what took place. But at the end of the day, it's my story.
Right. It's all about
And
you.
yes,
It's about
exactly.
your self-satisfaction.
It is, but once again, me telling my story is not to harm you
Right.
or make you feel like I'm judging or trying to hurt you. I want to help someone else. And I'm going to bring up my sister because me and my sister was on the phone and we
Right.
talked for a good hour.
Okay.
And now she has her own radio talk show in North Carolina
Okay.
that they brought her on. And like I was explaining to her, because she wants me to come on her show too. And I had to say, you know, when I do tell my story, even concerning me and her, because we didn't talk for a good 5 years.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Yes. You know, and it's not that I didn't love her.
Was it very controversial?
It was.
Okay.
Until she understood finally, you know, and she's a therapist.
What?
She's a therapist. She's a therapist. But
Okay.
once again, you know, therapists, they're humans.
Right, they are.
Pastors are humans.
Yeah.
We just gotta, it's the title that people get shocked, even when it comes to pastors and ministers, you know, but he's a man. She's a
Right.
woman, you know, and people think those people had perfect lives and they didn't.
They don't.
You know, so, you know, sometimes of hearing, because this is the first time ever hearing me out. And I said, I'm going to say some things that you probably don't like, but it's not here to hurt you.
And how did she respond?
She was good
Okay.
because she understood where I was
And she
coming
accepted-
from.
she
Right, because I
accepted
said, if we're gonna be public figures for anyone, we're not perfect.
That's right.
We're gonna let people know from the good or the bad how we got through it. Because you know, it's not that I couldn't stand her, but it was just a lot of things that made me angry. If she would have called me, I would still be there because that's how my mother raised us to be.
Right.
But if it was the tables turned, no, she's not sitting at my table. This is not the Lord's Supper. We're not going to sit here and eat together.
So
But
did this start as a youthful thing?
no, because I was always, once again, I took care of her while my mother worked. And she brought up a factor. She thought that I resented her
Right.
because I had to do for her being young.
Okay.
You know,
Well, she had a problem with you being a lead?
no, she just thought that I was angry because my mother put a lot on me. Like I had
okay.
to, and I said
See you
no.
complaining a lot?
Huh?
Did she see you complaining a lot?
No, I never really complained. She
Okay.
just felt like as we got older, she felt like I resented her. And I'm glad that it came out. This was like 2 days ago. And I was just like, no.
How about the rest of your siblings?
My brother passed away,
Okay.
and my older sister passed away, but I took on taking care of their children.
Wow.
You know, back then they were doing so many different things. You know, younger, you know, the drugs, the drinking, you know, and I had to take care of that. My mother was raising them as being the grandmother, and I ended up taking on the responsibility.
Through this whole scenario, did you come to a conclusion of saying, if you had to come to a conclusion and say it in one word, what would that be?
That I thank God that I survived
Okay.
it all, from the good or the bad.
And you know, I'm going to say this, and I admire you for it. You know, it wasn't a drink and a drug involved where
Yeah.
you had to actually medicate yourself.
Yeah.
I think that would have been so bad, you know.
Yeah.
And I admire you for that.
Yeah. Thank
Because the
you.
majority of the women, especially one young lady that did call me, she said, you know, they drove me to drink.
Yeah.
They drove me to drug. And I'm like, wow. You know, I'm like, what can I say?
Yeah. Mentally.
But for you,
Yeah.
you came out of the pit, you know, and you're good.
Yeah, I actually can say, because even going to therapy, you know, the first thing they want to do is put you on medication.
Right.
You know, but for me, I don't want to numb nothing.
Right. I hear you.
You know, and it's a reality. When you drink and you get sober, you back at the same thing. You either gonna deal with it or you're not. And that's how I looked at life, and it made me not drink, get high, you know. And I'm not gonna say I didn't try it.
Right.
You know, smoking the weed or whatever. It just wasn't me. I ain't
Just-
gonna
yeah.
say that
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
wasn't
have a
you.
drink. Or I didn't say I didn't have a cigarette. Yeah, I tried all those things, but it just wasn't me. And and it didn't last long. Maybe one point, no, this is not. This is for the birds, you know.
So, Regina, what's your next move now? I mean, you got the book going on, you got one coming out.
So my next move is that I want to continue with my organization to help people like myself, that if they can't pay for therapy, so when you do donations to my organization, I'm able to help someone, you know, get them into therapy, pay for therapy. I had 5 suicidal victims
Wow.
that through my organization that I was able to help. You know, talking to them and them reaching out to me personally, getting them therapy. You know, they didn't know if they were coming or going, and now they're
Wow.
doing really well. They're still in
great.
therapy. And, you know, and a lot of men, I have to say, it's hard for them to go for therapy. They just think that it's not, they're not being, you know, strong. I
Right.
don't need that. You know, I don't need nobody telling me what to do. But I actually had 5 men and 1 female.
Well, you know, it's been a pleasure to have you back on the show again with another conclusion, because we hit a lot of points, and thank you.
Thank you.
And this has been another T-Lo video production. Guys, go out there and get her book, Pieces of Me, and she has Naked coming out. And stay tuned for another one of my episodes. Thank you.
It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.